So first of all, thanks everyone for joining in, taking out time from your weekend and giving it to us. So I hope we add value to your time. And again, to start with, all of you are safe and sound. So to begin with, today's session is all about React components. Before we begin with the session, there are few ground rules which I would like to set with all of you. So let's try to make this session as interactive as we can. At any point in time, you are free to give any questions in chat. You can keep on responding, yes, we are able to understand, no, or whatever, however it is. So, and we will begin with the session. Just to begin with, how many of you are here who have knowledge of working in React? I'll repeat, how many of you know the basics of React? Guys, I'm just coming in again. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, Rahul, okay. So for all those who are not having good experience with React, so this is basically we are into second phase right now. So the first phase is basically when we understand the React principles, we install React. This session is more of related to use of React components. Okay. If you are having voice issue, maybe you can try to reconnect, because I feel everyone is able to hear me perfectly. Now, once we see the React components, so what are React components? Basically, React components are the reusable parts of my program, right? So we will move ahead with the session. Okay. So what is expected in the session? We will be starting with a very little of React.js. What is React? How is React different from Angular? And why should we as people try to learn or explore React? Next is components, function-based components, class-based components, composition. It's a very important feature for our components. And moving ahead is my life cycle. Then are my state and props. And if time permits, we'll be moving on to HOC. HOC is kind of higher order of composition. Now, before I begin, I'll just give you a brief about myself. I am Aditya. I'm a master's in technology from BITS Pilani. I am having 6 years of experience of application development at the enterprise level. And in my past 2 years, I have been working on a React. I have experience of working in Angular as well. But I personally feel favorite of a React because of its less dependency and more ability to, absorb more things. Okay. To begin with, what is React.js? React.js is a library. How many of you understand a difference between a library and a framework? How many of you? Yes, guys, any one of you? So we say that this is a library, this is a framework. How do we differentiate between the two? Okay, good. So is Angular a library or a framework? Guys, let's try to, even if you don't know, it's fine. You can answer up. Okay, yes, all of you are correct in their own term. Angular is a framework and React is a library. Let's see how do these two differ. Basically, library is something which is a kind of an add-on. Like, so by add-on I mean like I need to import the library and I need to get started. That is my library. What is framework? Framework is a hard code binding for everything. Like okay, can I import Angular from a CDN and directly start working? Yes, that is correct. What you're saying is correct. So basically, library is a very small set of features. So that gives you the basic which is available. Now, as and when you keep on adding functionalities, you keep on adding other supporting tools, and so basically you customize it based on your need. So the core is very small. You add on as and what you need. That is the power of a library. So now, Angular is a framework. What it means, Angular is a framework. By that, I mean that Angular has a very strict binding. Whatever is there in Angular, that is supposed to be there. You can't undo that, or there are some tight rules which need to be followed every time. Whereas in case of React, that's a very good advantage. There are no tight rules. You can you can even have a React application, a single page application, and you can get started. So just one HTML file and that is it. So now React is an open source project. That means, so React is open source. So it is created by Facebook. By that, Facebook, so that brings a lot of power. Now imagine, like any new feature in React that is first tested at a scale. So like whenever a new feature in React comes up, Facebook tests it internally on all the apps which you guys are using. And once that has found acceptance, then only it publishes those to the actual market. Guys, I hope I'm correct, right? So with all these power, with all these understanding, it is very good as as a library, and that is reason why it is so popular today. Now, why I use React? I use React as a UI. So what is UI? UI means user interface. So basically, in my application, I have a three-layer structure, which is a MVC, model, view, and controller. So React forms my view layer on my application. Guys, any doubts here anyone is having? Guys, any doubts anyone having till here, guys? Let's be quick, let's be fast. Okay, perfect. Before we move further, so what are the magic of React, or what are the features which have made React so popular? One is the use of JSX, another one is components, another one is hooks, and another one is virtual DOM. So we'll be seeing these three separately some other time. Today, we are majorly concerned on the components. So how components work? Imagine, so till now what was happening, I'll give you an example. So if you go to a website, like say, I'll go to the React's website directly. So this is my React website. Now, if I go to any page on the React, you find that my home page or these pages or these lines on the menu are still the same. They are not changing, right? Only the text is changing, correct? So this was happening with all other languages, but with the ability to have components, I can use one component and move other. So over here, this is a separate component. This is a separate component. So all these things put together give me a good use and give me the ability to create reusable application. So now this docs, it can be used over here, or else if I'm trying to open docs somewhere else also, I can reuse this component again and again. This gives me the power of modularity in my code, and that is the reason why React is so famous as of date. Guys, are we good till here? Any doubts still here? Yes, guys. Anyone having any doubts? Perfect. Great. Thank you. So, what are components? Uh, Abhilash, yeah, so it's not about that. We can't say that it is completely taking over React. The power React has exhibited in the market. So maybe some other day we plan to have a session on Vue, and then we'll be trying to compare how Vue is importing the features of React or how it is improving. But yes, as a tool, as a sense, React is right now the most popular framework. I would say that. So view is my React model, is my, like say, my entire controlling model. So Sarathi, that comes as a part of MVC layer. So that is not the part of the study. We'll try to cover that in the Q&A session. You can make a note of it. We will cover that later. So what are components? Components are small modular parts of my program. What do you mean by the modular? Okay, guys, we always talk about, whenever we talk about any language, we talk about modularity. What do we mean by modular languages? A language which has a proper syntax and allows me to reuse the code without having to rewrite the code. That is known as modularity, correct? How React components do that? So React components have a feature of returning the HTML, and we'll be seeing it in the next slide, how we create component and how we get started with it. So don't worry about that. So now components are independent. So like there's a component for home, there's a component for document, there's a component for everything. You just call the component and you are good to go, right? React components are the same thing as JavaScript function. So we'll be coming to this line. So basically so there are two ways of creating a component. One is a function, one is a class. So for the function components, those are exactly JS functions, right? Now, how do components return HTML? Components return HTML via render function. So what is my render function? Render function is the one which will return me the HTML, which will be rendered on the screen. So Components will take input in the form of props and return me the elements. An example of this can be, say, you are on the products page on Amazon's website. So there's a product ID which is being fetched, or which is being on which you are traversing right now. Inputting that ID, the React application will create the entire application, the entire DOM, and will show it to you. Right now, moving on, there are two ways of creating components. First are class components, another are function components. Now, from here, we will be starting with the practical, and we'll be trying to explore all the things one by one. So the simplest and the easiest way to create React components is using a JS function. So what we do is, so if the first line goes like this, I say import React from React, I create a function app, I create a message, and I simply say return. This return is giving me the HTML, which is then shown on the screen. Guys, any doubts still here anyone is having now? So this is the first type of creating. This is the first type of creating a component. Yes, Prasad. So components are like classes. So there are two types of components: the class-based component and the function-based component. Right now we are covering the function-based components. So since it is clear to all of you, let's try to move ahead and create a project and see that, right? I think most of you would be interested in seeing the practical working rather than the theoretical concepts, correct? Okay, so I say, I go to my project. So I say React and I say degree, okay. Okay, I say CD projects. Now I will create a new project. So nps create React app. This is a command which I need to use, or which will help me create the React project. This goes by the term CRA. We call it the CRA. C for create, R for React, app for app. Webinar components, correct? Now this will take a bit of time to come up, and in the meantime it comes up with all these things. We will try to explore, or we will try to move ahead in our example. Okay. In the meantime, this opens up. I'll open up my Visual Studio Code. So I have my projects up and running, and this is my webinar component. So this is just the package or .json which has come up. It will take a few minutes of time to load the entire thing. And once this does, then our project will be ready. Guys, can we move ahead? Because this will take 5 minutes. npx is a command to create a project. So to create a React app, like this is like npm. Correct, Hitesh? Is that fine? So npm is basically, it's npm stands for Node Package Manager, and npx, like people found that this sx means for execute. Yeah. Yes, it is mandatory to use npx. Yeah. Yes, Radhi, you would need to have Node pre-installed and your npm working if you want to use React. That is true. Yes, Abhishek, you need to use npx. Otherwise, there are different ways also in which you can do it. But if you want to create the entire structure, then yes, this is a good way, or this is the only best way. Otherwise, it would be a bit difficult for you. Okay. So this is my React components, and over here, okay. Any difference in command for Windows terminal? No. The command are exactly the same. There's no difference in command. Framework versus library. So Bhanu, what happens is framework are very tightly bound, right? So, there are some coding guidelines, there are some rules to be followed, there's structure to be followed. Whereas in library, I just import one thing and I get started. And as and when I wish to use some things, I can try to add the components, or I can try to add other libraries. So till the time we were talking, guys, the project is ready. I'll show you a structured once quickly. This is my project, the webinar components. This is my source, and this is my public, my modules. Everything is up over here, right? Now, there's something as Babel, which we are using. So Babel is a kind of a script, which is allowing us to merge all of this into one, right? Yes, Uchita, we can start with only one app, but that is in way to create React, right? So right now we are looking for components. So in order to show you the structure, that is why I've done it like this. If you want, I can show you that as well, Ruchita. Wait, I'll just quickly turn it up. So Ruchita, just keep this question in place, and once we are coming up with the Q&A session, I can show it to you. Okay, so Nikhil, React has two parts: the React Web and the React Native. So React Web is what we are looking right now, and React Native is what we can look for if you are developing mobile applications. Okay, so this is my hello world, guys. My application is up and running. This is my app.js, and this is where it is having things done. So if I go to my app.js, this is my entire code. Now what I will have to create over here is, over here in my source, I'm creating a new file. Let's name it as function-based components.js. I say import React from React, right? What next? I create a function and I name it as hello world. So this function returns returns what it returns inside a h1 block. It returns a hello world. Perfect, guys. So this is my simplest, you can say simplest function or simplest component return. Now what I can do is I can say export. Now, so this is a function. I need to export this as a component. So I would say export default hello world. Now I need to go to my index.js file, and over here I need to import my function. So I would say I would import my component hello world from, the name of this was FBC or function based components, correct? So over here I say hello world, and let us see. So my hello world is working over here, guys. Guys, is it clear now? So that is the simplest function I wrote. Now, not every time will I have a so easy function like this. Imagine I need to have a message or a variable which is a message and which is having something as hello world which needs to be printed. So what I do is I create create a variable like this, and this message is then to be returned inside my h1 tag like this. So the output is still the same. The only difference is in the working of uh, the way. Okay, so Leon, strict mode is kind of a add-on for the React. So let's keep this for the later sessions for Q&A. Please keep a note of it. So, but yes, one thing is for sure, this won't matter. So if you want, you can even remove this. That won't matter. Okay, guys. So the application is still running, right? Perfect. We will now move ahead. That was a very easier way to create a function, right? I'll explain you, Leon, like what it actually is. I'll explain it to you. Don't worry. Now, so we have a single component, and our applications are not so much simple, right? There are multiple things, there are multiple applications, there are multiple components. So when we have a component inside a component, imagine if we had in my this example, if I had, so this is a message, right? Now, if I had 5 places where I was to show a message, so what I can do is my coding guidelines suggest me that create a separate function, pass a variable or pass a value, and then try to use it. Correct, guys? Correct me if I'm wrong. So what we do, we create something like message, right? Now in message, I have a value. So value is being whatever is coming up from here and over here, right? So this message is now to be displayed. So what I do is I simply say return. Now what I return over here, I return over here a message. So inside message, what I return the value. So value is equal to hello world. Nest. So look for this very carefully and understand, try to understand the logic. Okay, what it is saying that, yes, the session will be recorded. Don't worry about that. You would be able to have a look at it later on. Don't worry. Okay, is it coming up? Yes. Now see what is happening. So what we did was I created, so I'll ignore this part as of now. What I did was I created a hello world and I'm creating message. Now, if imagine this hello world had, or imagine there was another show message, function show alert. If I had to show a alert, what is alert? Alert is again a message, right? There's an error on the page. So, okay. Now, so both of them, they will display a H1. So this is what I do in nesting. So what is nesting, guys? I'll just reiterate. So when we are building a component, our logic is, or our try remains to have the application in such a way that I can reuse maximum code. For that purpose, what we do is we do reusability using nesting. So what is nesting? Nesting is also termed as composition. So what is composition? So when we build components from another components, right? So I have a parent component. In the parent component, I call the child component. That is known as nesting. Now, how it helps and what are this value known as, right, which is being passed? This value is known as prop. Prop means the properties which I'm trying to pass inside the function. So have a look at this props very carefully because there are two concepts. One is a state, one is a prop. State is something which is independent to a component, and prop is something which component receives from a parent or from some other component. Now, as soon as I receive the prop, it is very important for me to maintain the level of immutability. This prop is non-editable. I can't reassign it. I can't change its value. Correct, guys? Start is nesting now. So this is a nesting example which we are gonna see over here. Correct, guys? So this is what we did. The app, a function which is returning something and something being passed. So right now it is trying to get the message over here, but I have gone a step ahead and I have passed the message over here in the return itself. Guys, any doubts anyone is having till here? Okay, perfect. I'll move ahead. So that was the basic example of using functions. But we know that we have something as Lambda functions. How many of you know what is a Lambda function, guys? Anyone who can answer me quickly, what is a Lambda function? Okay, Bharat, what is Lambda function? So basically, trying to create a function inside a, okay, yes, so the Lambda functions remain very similar. So yes, Saradhi has given it correctly. Basically a one line or an anonymous function, a very simple function just in single line. So React components also support Lambda functions. So like this is my app and I just have a function like this, I return this and this is returned. So no function needed, nothing needed, and this will work as expected. Guys, shall we convert our function to a Lambda function? What say? Should we try that? Perfect. Okay. So what I'm supposed to do over here is I am supposed to create a function. So I would say constant hello world. Now what is hello world? This is a function, but it's a anonymous function and it goes like this. So I simply say return and I cut it and I paste it over here. So everything will remain the same. Just the ease is the way we use it. So let's see if my code runs and it is running perfectly. There is no change in the code. Okay, just to remind you, by using npm start, I'm able to have a live server which is recompiling whenever I make any change. Imagine if I do it over here, you see that that it has just compiled. Correct, guys? So now what we did was we tried to create a Lambda function inside using on my main function or the component. I can even have my other function use the Lambda function. So let's try to set that. Guys, I hope all of you are able to follow, right? There is no one who is facing any issues, correct? So I would say constant message. So what is message? This is a function, but this function is accepting a value which is value, right? And over here I am saying the function body cannot change. That is expected to remain the same. Just the difference is in the definition or in the way we define it. Correct, guys? So we'll move on and we will be getting the view over here. Over here I find that my function is called and everything is working fine. Guys, can we move ahead? Any questions still here, guys? Guys, any questions still here? Anyone? Guys, come on, ask questions, ask questions. Yes, guys, don't worry. Recording will be provided. So, Leon, what you were asking about the ES20 standards, so that is expected. So don't worry about that. But if you wish to cover, like if you wish to, use them in currently as of support, it's not there. Maybe in the next question, it would be coming up in React. Okay. Yes, Shweta, that is my next topic. So once we click next, we move on to something as state. So right now we have seen my function. You guys saw that the value was the props over there being passed. Now, shall we try to explore the state? How many of you agreed of using state, guys? Let's be quick. Perfect. Now, so what is the state? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll let this code remain as it is over here. I'll try to create another one, which is state FPC, right? And just creating a new file so that you guys can refer this code once it is shared with you and try to recreate the example and look into for any errors if you have made. So I let it be hello world, or okay, I'll create a new example. So I say constant. I'm making it as an app right now. The app is a Lambda based function and this will return me something. Correct, guys? So this message which was there, this message will be, okay, I'll remove these two. I'll remove this and I'll come up over here. Okay, this Ruchita, this what you are seeing, the braces, the diamond braces, these stand for you say your expression, and whenever you are passing an expression in React, you need to have these covered up. So Leon, what you are saying in so JSX and JS, these two differ in their compilation. JSX are compiled to form JS. So I would say JSX are a bit faster. That is the truth. Okay, so now we have a hello world coming up and we have this message. Now let us try to remove this part. So this is basically a prop which is coming up. So this is nothing else. This is an expression. That is why it is under braces. So over here, now we try to use state. So what I do over here is I come out inside over here. I say a const. So what is my const? My const is a message. So what is a message? So whenever we have a message, I have a set function for it. Yes, Abhishek, if you have a JSX, you can create a JSX file. That's also fine. So whenever we have a state, so this message is my state and my set message is a function which is using it. So I say use state. And over here I say state-based, function-based components. Correct, guys? Now, whenever we are returning, I am returning the value over here. So let's try to, guys, is this part correct? Whatever I have done, any questions in this part till now anyone is having? Now I don't need to pass anything inside my message. Correct. Wait, I'll come to this part later on. Is this part clear, guys? I'll import it in my index.js and see the output. So this is coming in from hello world from. This is to be imported in from my state-based functions. I remove this one and let us see. It is taking me to the correct one, right? Okay, I'll go to my Chrome browser to see the output. This is state-based function. This has come up. Now you see that the output is coming from a state or from a variable. You found that I was not allowed to edit the value which was being passed. So this value was non-editable, but I can alter the state. So what I'll do is, guys, are you willing to go further and let's try to add a value, add something to it, right? No, no, guys. We import everything to my app.js file, index.js. Index.html is nothing. Yes, let's try to add it. So what I'll do is, inside the return, I'll create a div. So what is this div all about? This div will be first having a heading. Let's try to bind it to a particular input, right? This is my div and I create a input. So what is my input? Input means a input text, correct, guys? So the type is text. Let's try to add the value. So what is the value, guys? The value is the message. And what should happen when I change it? So on change, I am calling an event. Now this is event, again of another function, anonymous function, and I am saying set message. Okay. Over here, guys. So now what should happen as an output is that whatever is in my message will be shown over here. And if I happen to change anything over here, that will be also reflected automatically. Let's move ahead and see. So like right now, if I say Eduonix example, you can see that the change is real-time change. Perfect, guys. Now on the side, this doesn't look nice. So what I'll do is I'll give it a div as a in the middle. So I would say class name is equal to app. I'm getting app directly from my thing. So over here, now it gives sense and it's in the middle. Correct, guys? So this is a kind of a binding which I have done. And this binding allows me to create the components directly. Perfect, guys? Guys, are we good till this part? Anyone having any questions till here, guys? I hope this sounds interesting, right? And we're not just on the theory part. So this is my on change event. This is an event. This is my set message of the state. So now I think you would have got an idea of a state versus props. When I was passing the value over here, that was a prop. Prop means a property. Property objects are immutable in nature, whereas state objects are mutable. So whatever I'm giving to the state, this is my state object and this is my state setter method. Whenever I have to set something, I can simply set it over here. Correct, guys? Make sense, everyone? Excited to move ahead, guys? Okay, Saradi, I'll just, okay. Guys, I'll just explain you the structure once again for a moment. So this is my project, the webinar component. This is my public. Public is something which is rendered on the server, right? This is on my screen. So in this index.html, I'm not making any changes. I'm closing it, right? I showed you that my application in the starting was my app.js. I am not using app.js. I have created my own file by the name of FBC, function-based component.js, and I have imported this into my index.js over here. I hope guys you are clear with the structure now. Guys, anyone having any queries? Perfect, thank you. So moving on to the next, so these were state components and we guides how the state works. Let's move on ahead to the class-based components. So till now, like till the previous versions or till ES6, as people often say, React was not allowed to create classes. So to create classes, we had to use something as create class method. But with the ES6 definition, and now we have something as class components. So what are class components? Class components are by default stateful components. Why? Because class components directly have a constructor in which I can give the state. Correct, guys? So now what happens is, so whenever we are working on a class-based component, we always extend the class component from the React.component. So let's move on and let's see how we do it. In my source folder, I would say cbc.js. Okay, now I would say import React from React. Perfect. So I say class. Now let's name it as what would we like? Let's name it as CBC. Extends React.component. So this is my component which needs to be always imported, and whenever I need to do something, I need to pass render. Now, if you guys remember in my which function, in my function based component, render was not mandatory, but over here it is mandatory for me to call the render. So I would say return inside h1 class base component. Correct, guys? Now everything remains the same. I say export default CVC. Perfect, guys. Now I go over here, I go to my index.js and I say import app from dot star CBC. No, I think this is CVC, correct? Okay, yeah. I import this and I will replace this with this one, and let's see the output. So over here and this one. Okay, guys, there are a lot of questions. Okay, yes. So Leon, yes, that can also work. I'll just tell you. So if in case I am using or I'm importing React above, then I can directly use component. If in case I'm not using it, I'm advised to use React.component. Just as a practice, I have got habit of using it, so that's fine. Don't worry about that. Next thing. Yes, we can export this, Leon. So Leon's question is that. So Leon is asking a question saying that, can you export the constant like this? Yes, we exported it over here. If you go to FBC, I created a constant function and I exported the constant function. I hope I answered your question correctly, right? Abhishek, so okay, if you can come up with a question, what you're asking is like, you want to use only function component? What is the question? Yes, you can do that, Leon. That's not a problem. So difference is like, so basically see in your Prasad, understand this. So in class based, so my function components may be stateful or may be stateless. My class components always have a state, right? That is the first basic thing. If you know that your component will directly give you an HTML example, your alerts, right? Those alerts don't need any calculation, right? Those can be function components, because you don't need any render over there. You don't need to have any hard coding over there. So based on the use cases, you can use any of those. No. The structure is always the same. So like all of them can have a class, all of them can have a, sorry, all of them can have a state, all of them can have a life cycle. So the structure will always be the same. The structure is not the difference. The difference is in the use and the use cases majorly. Guys, can I move ahead quickly, guys? So this is my class-based component. I have just created one class and try to use it. Okay, perfect. So my class-based component, I am saying component. If you import it from here, directly I can use the component. Otherwise, you can use the component. Okay. When you have Abhishek, when you are using a proper structure, like say you have a state to manage, like say user profile, in those cases you would need to use class. For alerts, for errors, for console warnings, you can simply use functions. Is that clear, guys? Okay. Guys, now let us try to create. So the example which we did with our state-based function, right? This one of managing the state. Let us try to do this using a class-based component. Everyone is okay with that? Can we make a component to include all mostly use imports and import this one only? No, Leon, that's fine. I'm not getting your question. If you could rephrase it, I'm a bit confused. What document you're asking about? Are you asking about the code or the PPT? Guys, code, PPT, everything will be shared. Okay, no, you have to, but don't worry. Like over here, I didn't type this, right? Everything will be coming up automatically. So this is the power of the Visual Studio IDE. That will happen. Recording will be shared, guys. Don't worry about that. Now in this component, I'll try to add, or I'll try to move on by adding a constructor. So what is the constructor? I hope all of you are aware. So constructor is something. Okay. So this is my constructor. Now what I'll do is the value which I was having, like if you remember your CBC, your state-based function, right? Where I was trying to have an input. I'm trying to create something exactly very similar, but the difference is that I'm storing this value inside my local storage, right? So just have a look at it, and if you are stuck anywhere, let me know. Now, whenever in my constructor over here, I can set the state. So this dot state is equal to, I will name it as value. So from my local storage, I try to get the item. Now, this is my item key. If in case this doesn't works, then I say, give me a null value or a blank value. And over here, this is my value. Correct, guys? Now we are moving on to, okay, Kunj, I'll just summarize it. I'll just give me a second. Okay, guys, so to all of you who are unaware, local storage is a new object in HTML5. It has given you a storage on the browser itself. By getting a storage on the browser, you are able to use your browser's memory or a browser storage to store key value pairs. Right? Now over here, I'll have something as component data update. Guys, just pardon me from the, yes, we can. Guys, pardon me for this function. I'll be explaining it in the later half of the session. Local storage dot set item. Sorry. item key. So now this is my get item and this is my set item. Inside my set item, I say this dot state dot value, right? So this was my value and this is my value passed again. Correct, guys? Now, I'm defining a function. Why don't we? Yeah, we can use that as well. Actually, I'm not using it over here just because, you know, like I'm initializing it with a value. That's why. But yes, what you're saying is correct. We can do that as well. Don't worry. I will use it now, the set state method. So now I'm creating an on change function. This is an event which once triggered will call the this dot set state. I'm calling the set state method, and inside this one I am giving the value, the event, the target, sorry, and whatever is the value. Once I have this, and once I have this up and running, so now guys, we will move ahead and in the render function, we will try to create. So rather than recreating it, I'll copy my return over here and pass it inside the render. Perfect, guys. So this is my div. Inside the H1, I am saying React ES6 class based components. Perfect, guys. So I have an input. Now, what is the value? The value is, this is not message. This is this dot state dot value. So if you guys can remember now, like what Leon was saying, like if we don't want to use this dot state, we can create a message like we did the last time in my function based component, in my state based component over here. If I would have created a constant like this, it would have worked perfectly fine. But I'm giving you another way of doing it. Now, and on the change of event, I am simply calling a function which is this dot on change. Perfect, guys. Now, just a small p tag to display the value, and this is this dot state dot value. Perfect, guys. So there is nothing in over here. Hello from Eduonix. Now, once I refresh it, you would find that the value is still existing because it is persisted in the local storage. Guys, are you good with this example now? So over here, we made the use of local storage and tried to do it. But if it's on click, it will get the last value. Your question is not clear, Leon. Can you come again? We are not doing it on click, we are doing it on the on change. So on change is updated every time. There's a difference between the on click and the on change. Guys, anyone having any questions till this part? Anyone, guys, any questions till this one? So we have created a class, a component. I'll just reiterate whatever we have done in a second. Give me a second. A function-based component goes like this. Using the ES6 definition, it becomes like this. This is a hello world and a message. This is known as composition or nested structuring, right? Moving ahead inside the state FBCs, we have created a state over here because my functions components are by default stateless. To give them a state, I give them a state like this, and over here I do everything. I'm creating an input and I'm binding this input to my constant. Moving ahead to my CBC or my class-based component, I am trying to initialize this component over here using the local storage, and I'm trying to bind it over here, guys. Any questions? I have reiterated. Are you guys clear with this part? Yes, guys, the value will persist. On click is something, I don't click a input, I click a button, right? So that is why we differentiate between the two. Perfect, guys. So that was about the components, all of that, right? So we are done with the components and all of that. So what is the class-based component? It's a ESX, and it can be done using the extend one. It can accept props, and it can maintain its own state, right? Now, React component, if you don't give a render function inside a class, then it would return null, and there would be no component ever created on the UI. So guys, can we move ahead now? So now we are moving ahead to the next most important thing, or the most interesting thing ever. Yes, you can do that, guys. So the constructor will be auto created. Don't worry about that. The life cycle. Now, when I'm creating a component, I am majorly concerned on the data, right? Like we have, we have humans. Humans have a life cycle. Every animal has a life cycle. Everything in the world is known for its life cycle, and components are not so different, right? So my components start with the first state, or the first life cycle method, which is initialization. What happens in initialization? So when my component is just about to get started, that is the initialization state. If you guys go back to my example over here, this was the example of my lifecycle initialization. Right. Now over here, next is the mounting. So you guys we have different functions which can help us to mount the elements on the DOM. I hope all of you know what is DOM. DOM is DOM object model. So your entire HTML is nothing but a DOM, right? Moving on further is my updating. Like if you guys remember, we have done it over here. I feel that the value of a component is being updated. I can do it by using the updating. And the last one is unmounting. When I feel that my component work is finished and it should end, then I can do it using the unmounting stage. Guys, any doubts in this one? So we have 4 phases in the life cycle: the initialization, the mounting, the updating, and the unmounting. Initialization helps us to keep track of my values, like say the local storage value I was talking about. Mounting is something when I try to get the value mounted on my component mounted on the DOM. Updating is a API call which has changed some value. Then I have the updating, and in unmounting, I simply remove or unmount the component. Yes, Kunch, don't worry, you would be getting the recording and the PPT as well. So a component lifecycle has broadly 4 stages: initialization, mounting, updating, and unmounting. Correct, guys? So how we initialize, the most important and the one where my entire loading happens. So initialization happens inside a constructor. Right? So whenever I'm calling a constructor over here like this one, this is my initialization happening. So when I did, if you remember over here, when I did my this dot state from local storage, this was my initialization. Value was the one which I was trying to initialize, and this is my state which is being maintained over here. Guys, any doubts till here, anyone? Okay, I still don't understand the difference of using. So Leon, you see now that we used local storage. Now, wait. Imagine, so if I happen to close this window and if I reopen this one, if we would have not used local storage, would we be able to maintain the state or the data? But now once I click, I get the data which is already pre-existing. If you want to see, you go to inspect. I'll explain the constructor once again, guys, just give me a moment. So if you go over here, if you go to application, local storage, this is my local storage. Perfect, guys. Leon, is it clear now? So now if I happen to change this value, Like let's say Aditya, right? And if I close this and if I refresh this, the file is updated. Got it? Perfect, guys. So basically we use local storage just to make a note of my, like say to know your username. Such things can be stored in local storage. No, guys. Don't confuse between cookies and local storage, Abhishek. I'll show it to you once again. This is my local storage application. This is my local storage. These are my cookies. These are two different things. HTML5 things have become very different. So we are supposed to have knowledge of all of this. So local storage is specific to a page. Session storage is specific to the application. You can even use your own SQL, and this is my cookie. Okay, coming on further. Any rule of thumb? See, Preeti, any data which you are aware should not be refreshed. Your username, that is generally persisted, right? Your device type, that is persisted. So we try to keep that in the local storage. And any data which is changing, or authentication or security, that you do from the API. Okay, guys. Okay, because I find you guys have a lot of questions. Why? Like I hope I'm making it clear, right? Like should we? Yes, that is also local empty array. Where if you are asking me to empty this one, so now I don't have anything in the local storage. I'm not getting any null. I try to do it. It is getting over here done. Okay. Moving on further is okay. Yes, so I've answered I think all the questions. Can we use variable name or something instead of props inside the constructor? Yes, you can use that. Not a problem. But whatever you are using, try to pass it same to the super method. Guys, can we move ahead now? So I've got my life cycle. The first method, the constructor, initialized constructor up and running. Now, post the constructor comes my next step or the next method, which is the mounting stage. So if you guys want to see the mounting stage has two methods, component will mount and component did mount. Will mount is called just before the component is about to be on the DOM, and did mount is called after the component has been mounted. If you are planning to call an API, you should always call in the component did mount and not in the component will mount. So like guys, like just to make a note, local storage is visible. So it's always good to have only those things which you are sure will not hamper your application security can be stored in the local storage. Okay, guys, moving on further is my lifecycle methods. Like for example, this is my lifecycle example. I'm having a component will mount and a component did mount. Over here, I am not doing anything. Over here, I am trying to get the list, which is a separate API call working. Perfect, guys. Are we good till here? Now in the render, I am trying to do something, and that is it. Moving on further is my updating stage. Now, my components have been created. Now I need to update them. What do we mean by update? Updates are the use cases when you wish to use your application or when you wish to, have an API call and the response which needs to be re-render. Those go in the updating stage. Updating is done by in three levels. The first is should component update. Whenever you wish to update the component, you set this method as true. Okay, guys, Abhishek, is it fine now? Whenever you wish to, update the component, you set the should component update equal to true, and there are two methods: component will update and component did update. Correct, guys? Are we good till here? So guys, rather than wasting time and going through the theory once again, let's try to implement something like this, and then we will be in a better position to understand. Okay, let's try to create a new one. We can have it in this one also. Okay, so should we modify this example or create a new one? Whatever you say, guys. Okay, I create a new method, which is lifecycle CBC or a lifecycle class-based component. I copy these first two lines of the code. I paste it over here and I'm good to go. So now this I'm naming it as lifecycle CBC. Now, what is the first thing I need to do in the constructor? I'm having a props constructor and I'm having a super one. Super is again calling the props. And then I try to set the state. Now let us try to begin a counter, right? So then what will the counter have? The counter needs to have something as data, a value, right, which is to be stored. And let us try to get this number. I'm trying to set a new number and this goes by this dot set new number dot bind. I am binding this by the current object. Okay. Now, what we need to do over here is I need to create a new method which is set new number. So this was an incremental value. So I say this dot set state, and what is inside set state? This is data, and what goes inside data? This dot state dot data, and whatever is the value incremented by 1. Perfect, guys. Now, let us try to render something out of this. And post render, render is to be worked inside the return. And inside return, I create a div. And div has a class name, which is app. I'm giving it right now in the starting H1, which says Eduonix webinar counter. Perfect, guys. Moving on further is a button. What will a button do? You guys remember, so we had an input text. Now I'm doing this button in order to get the onClick method. So this dot set new number. So this is a function which is being called, and on click it is calling this method. And over here, it is trying to say increment the counter. Perfect, guys. Now let us try to create a counter component which will work and which will help me understand the entire life cycle. So I would say counter component. This component is coming from where? From React.component. What goes inside this one is the lifecycle method. So the first one is component will mount. Okay, over here I simply say a console.log saying that component will mount. Perfect, guys. In the second one, I have something as component did mount. So component did mount. What next is my update, right? So what was the name? Should component update. And over here, it has, okay, it would have some parameters like say some new props and some new state. Okay. And it will return me true because the component needs to be updated. Correct, guys? Moving on further is the two methods which are component will update and component did update. So this is my component will update and this is my component did update. Perfect, guys. Now, we will keep it till here and we will try to focus on the unmounting thing later. I say render and okay, I'm just trying to increment the value, guys. Okay, and inside my render, I need to return something, and what I return is a div. Okay, and inside the div, there's let's take a h2, which is this dot props dot number, right? Now, how do we get the number? We will be getting the number over here. So if you guys remember, we had created a counter component. So I would say counter, just not coming. Okay, counter component. This is counter component, and the field is number. Number is equal to this dot state dot data. So whatever is coming in will be shown over here. And this is my entire function logic being created. And I would say export default. Over here, the first one, which was my lifecycle CBC. I copy this one and I go to index.js and I say import lifecycle CBC from lifecycle CBC. I try to copy this one and I give it over here like this. Let us see the output now. Okay, what has happened? Unexpected use of history. Why? History no use here. Okay, guys, just give me a second. Let me see if I have missed. Okay, yeah, history. This. Okay, so as I increment the counter, it is incrementing and the same value is being reflected. Let us go to the console to see the log, to see the output. So see, the first time it is will mount, did mount. Otherwise, it is always will update, did update, will update, and did update. Guys, make sense? Are you good with this part? Okay, I just incremented by one just to just to have a look and feel of this one. Just that is why there's no other reason. Yeah, we can do that, Sradhi. We can have a data being coming up. Now, let's try to. Did mount was called once, na Bharat, see over here. Now let us try to remove this component, right? So I would say component will unmount. Now what will happen when the component unmounts? I would simply show a log saying that component will unmount. Okay, guys. Now, when will I actually unmount the component? That's the logic which I would need to do over here. I would say that now I'm setting a timeout in my application. That if the user is not interacting for the application for an initial 10 seconds, then let us try to remove the component. I say React DOM dot unmount component add node. This is a function which I use. I pass the node at which the component is to be unmounted. That is the root node. And over here, I close this one. Perfect. And over here I will pass the timer. So what is the timeout? The time which needs to be passed. I am passing as 10,000. If I refresh over here, if there's there's no work happening over here for 10 seconds, you would see that the component will be unmounted. So you see that component will unmount and the component is no longer visible on my screen. Correct, guys? Everyone guys, is it fine now? So if you refresh, you would find the component working. It will be there. The moment you leave it for 10 seconds, it will automatically be removed. Guys, any questions anyone is having? Moving on further in this one are my topics of understanding and knowledge, which are the state and the prop. So we have already seen this updating one. We have seen the unmounting when the component is to be removed. And moving on further is my state. So guys, we have already used state now. Let us give 5 minutes and try to understand what are states. So basically an object, there's a built-in object in every React component by the name state. Why we have that? It is there just to be in order to allow the React component to maintain some data. So state objects can change, it can even leave. So you can understand state as an observable pattern. So what is observable? The state is being observed directly. For any change found in the state, it automatically updates the life cycle and calls the methods consecutively, right? So like for example, this is my initialization of the state happening, and this is how I pass my attribute, and the state is binded to observable, which will help me track the changes and will give the impact on the life cycle in a similar manner. Guys, any questions in this state thing that till now? Okay. Moving on further is my props. So what are props? Props are immutable. So it's very similar to state. We have props, but the difference between state and props is that you can use props as immutable objects. Like say you are getting something from the URL, something from the history. All those are props. You can't change them throughout the life cycle of your component, and that is why those are termed as your immutable objects. Guys, any questions in state and props as of now? Any questions, guys? Guys, what happened? I hope all of you are awake, right? No one has slept. Okay. So how we differentiate the two? Okay. Now, give me a question, guys. Okay, give me an answer. I have to call an API. Will that API call be a state or will that be a prop? State perfectly. Uh, I have to change on the URL change. I have to refresh the product. Will that be a props or will that be a state? Prop, perfect. So just these are the two basic differences. And with that, guys, anyone has any questions in this part now? Hooks are a separate part of the study, Saradi. We are not covering hooks as in the session today. Maybe in some other webinar we can plan to cover hooks. Okay, now the last part or the last thing for the session is my HOC. What is HOC? HOC stands for higher order of composition. Now imagine, okay, how many of you have worked and like whenever you're trying to fetch some data, you always try to get something like if it's null value, I try to handle null. If it's a blank value, I try to handle blank values. Correct, guys? Guys, you are there with me, right? Now, higher order HOCs are the components which I use or which okay, I just read this line. Now, when we were trying to fetch the result from my local storage, just to check that if it's a null value or an empty value, I can have a React concept which can take the component directly and give me the output based on what is to be shown. Guys, does that make sense to any extent or like, wait, how much time we have, guys? Okay, we have 10 minutes. I'll try to go to my CBC and I'll try to work over here, guys. Now, So what I'll do is I'll create a with local storage. With is there because I need to pass. So whenever we are creating higher order of higher order compositions or higher order components, I use with just in order to be differentiate them from the other components. So I say local storage key. Now, this function will have two objects. So the first one will be the local storage and the another one will be the components. What I do is I'm trying to create a with local storage. This extends React.component. And over here, I try to get the constructor. Okay, so this is my constructor goes over here. So this dot state and whatever is my local storage key. And in my key, I'm saying get item, the local storage key, and this is not an object, so I would need to remove it. Okay. And I try to get the value. Guys, are we good till here now? Anyone having any doubts till here? So basically what I'll be doing over here in my higher order compositions is that basically, so the entire logic will be in my with local storage, and I'll tell my component whenever you are trying to call it, just pass the message. Since we are short of time, what I'll do is I'll quickly import an already existing example and show it to you. Okay, this is not the one. Okay, life cycle function based. Okay, class. Okay, guys, I would have to create it. Just give me a minute. I'll just quickly do it for you guys. So I've created this with local storage. I'm able to handle everything. I'll not focus on everything. I'll just try to explain the other part or the one where it would differentiate. Actually, higher order compositions or higher order components are a very big topic and they need to be covered separate. So what I'm saying is component. So I was passing this component over here. I'm saying if I get a component, then what you need to do is this dot state. We were targeting for a to-do app. Don't worry, I'll just quickly show it to you. That demo is there. No. To-do app is there. That's a different part of the story. I'm just trying to link it. Now, take example, guys, over here. Right now, if anything handling or error handling I had to do, I was supposed to do over here, right? But when in cases when I want my application to handle those scenarios, I create a return statement in such a way that I call the component and the component is passing the state and the props. This will help me enable or this will help me pass the value directly. And I would say set local storage is equal to this dot set local storage. Now, once I have to call this particular example, I would close my component and okay, I would close my component over here and I would say this is done and this is done. Now, to call this example or to call this component, I would have to do something like this over here. Have a look at it very carefully. This is the entire logic which needs to be passed. I'm saying constant app with local storage, right? This is equal to with local storage. Now, what was my item key? This was item key, and I am passing app. So I'm directly passing the app component. So once this comes up, once this execution starts starting, and I would export this. Once this starts, it would take up this component over here. It will execute, and based on the return, if component is to be called, it will return me the app component. This is a HOC concept known as higher order composition. So what do higher order components, guys? Don't worry if, like, since time is not permitting, we can have a separate session maybe sometime in the future where we would be covering the higher order components directly. Guys, any questions anyone has for me now? I'm leaving it out to you guys to ask any questions which you guys have.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe the channel. If you like the video, do give us a thumbs up and share it. Also check out amazing discounts and offers on our premium courses in the description below.